The game begins. Imagine losing everything without actually losing a single thing. Imagine being surrounded by people who smile at you, speak softly to you, touch your arm with concern, while secretly waiting for the exact moment you disappear for good. Lucas Azevedo learned very quickly that power is loud when you have it, and brutally silent when people believe you no longer do. The accident had changed everything, or at least that was what everyone thought. From the outside, Lucas was a broken man. His once confident posture had been replaced by measured steps, his sharp gaze hidden behind dark glasses. Doctors whispered, lawyers spoke around him, not to him. Decisions that used to require his approval were suddenly made for his own good. What no one knew was that Lucas could see perfectly. The glasses weren't medical, they were armor. From behind them, he watched the subtle shifts, the way conversation stopped when he entered the room, how voices lowered.
How his fiancée's hand no longer reached for his instinctively. He noticed the hesitation before people answered him, the impatience masked as compassion. And then there were the looks exchanged when they thought he couldn't notice. That morning, Lucas sat quietly in the living room of his own mansion, listening more than speaking. The sound of heels echoed down the hallway. His fiancée's voice followed, light and rehearsed. "He's still resting," she said to someone else. "The doctor said stress could make things worse." Lucas smiled faintly. Stress, he thought, or the truth. A second voice replied, lower, confident, far too comfortable inside that house. Papers rustled. A laugh followed, short, intimate. Lucas tilted his head, as if struggling to hear. In reality, he caught every word. Numbers were mentioned, deadlines, his company, his signature, spoken as if it were already a formality, as if he were already gone. Something cold settled in his chest.
But he didn't react. Not yet. This was exactly why he was pretending. Because when people believe you are weak, they stop hiding who they really are. And Lucas Azevedo intended to see everything. Every lie, every betrayal, and every person who thought he would never notice. The game had begun. Power doesn't vanish all at once. It erodes, quietly, politely, until one day you realize no one is asking anymore. Lucas felt it in the pauses. Meetings that once waited for him now started without notice. Emails arrived already decided, phrased as updates instead of questions. Even the house itself seemed to move differently around him, staff stepping softly, speaking slowly, as if volume alone could shatter what remained of him. He played the role well. Lucas sat through conversations with his hands folded, head slightly tilted, eyes hidden behind the dark lenses. He asked fewer questions. He nodded when people explained things he already knew. He let them think confusion had replaced authority. It was astonishing how quickly respect turned into pity. At lunch, his fiancée guided him to his chair, her hand firm on his arm, a touch meant for witnesses. She spoke for him when the waiter arrived. She chose his meal without asking. "He doesn't really have an appetite these days," she said gently. Lucas said nothing. Across the table, his business partner watched closely. The man's concern looked convincing, but his eyes betrayed something sharper, calculation. He spoke about cash flow, about restructuring, about protecting the company from instability. Lucas almost laughed. Instability, he realized, had become his name. Later that afternoon, he stood by the window of his own office, listening as voices carried from the hallway. They hadn't seen him there, or perhaps they had and simply assumed he wouldn't understand. "We can't wait much longer," his partner said. "She won't either," his fiancée replied. Not if this drags on. A pause followed, then footsteps moved away. Lucas remained still, his reflection faint in the glass. The man staring back at him looked smaller, diminished by design, and yet beneath the surface, his mind worked with terrifying clarity. They were rearranging his life while he stood inside it. What surprised him most wasn't their audacity, it was their certainty. They spoke as if the outcome was inevitable, as if his absence from power was permanent, as if his silence meant surrender. Lucas closed his hand into a slow fist. He could end this now. One word, one reveal. But then he remembered why he had chosen this path. Because truth revealed too early is just noise, and patience, when weaponized, becomes control. As footsteps echoed again in the hallway, Lucas turned from the window and sat back down, adopting the quiet posture they expected. For now, he would let them believe he was fading, because the more they took from him,
the more they would expose. And soon, he would need every truth he could gather. There was a particular cruelty in how concern could be rehearsed. Lucas noticed it most when he wasn't supposed to be listening. That evening, the house grew quieter than usual. Staff dismissed early. Lights dimmed. The air carried the subtle tension of something planned. Lucas sat in the adjacent room, motionless on the couch, his presence forgotten behind a partially closed door. Voices drifted in. "She's starting to ask questions," his fiancée said, her tone stripped of the softness she used around him. "We need this done before she gets suspicious." His partner responded calmly, almost bored. "Then stop playing the devoted caregiver. It's exhausting to watch." A soft laugh followed, intimate, familiar. Lucas felt his jaw tighten, but his breathing remained steady. They spoke freely now, about accounts, about transferring authority,
about timing everything so it looked inevitable rather than intentional. They referred to Lucas in the third person as if he were already a memory. "He won't fight it," his fiancée said. "He barely reacts to anything anymore." That one hurt more than he expected, not because it was true, but because she believed it. Lucas shifted slightly, letting a faint sound escape. Instantly, their voices softened. Footsteps approached. The door opened. There she was again, the version of her meant for him. Concerned eyes, gentle smile, a hand reaching for his. "Are you all right?" she asked. "We were just discussing how to make things easier for you." "Easier." Lucas nodded slowly, allowing the silence to stretch. He felt her relax the moment she thought he hadn't understood, the moment she believed the mask had worked. Later, alone in his room, Lucas removed his glasses and stared into the darkness. What he had overheard confirmed everything he feared, and more. This wasn't opportunism.
It was coordination. They had rehearsed this, planned it, waited for weakness to present itself. And yet, beneath the anger, something colder took shape. Clarity. Every lie they told now came with a pattern. Every whispered conversation filled in another piece of the puzzle. They weren't just betraying him, they were growing careless. Confident. And confidence, Lucas knew, was where people made mistakes. He lay back against the pillows, placing the glasses carefully on the bedside table. Tomorrow, someone new would arrive at the house, someone hired to assist with his care. A small, insignificant decision. Or so they believed. Lucas closed his eyes, already sensing that this quiet change, this new presence, would alter everything. Sometimes, the most dangerous truths entered a life quietly, just like betrayal had. Anna arrived on a morning that felt unusually still. The sky hung low and pale, the kind of quiet that settled over the house before something changed.
She stood at the gate for a moment, adjusting the strap of her worn bag on her shoulder, reminding herself to breathe. Big houses always made her nervous. They weren't built for people like her. Inside, the staff barely looked up as she was let through the halls. Instructions were given quickly, efficiently. She was told where to stand, what not to touch, when to speak. The rules were clear. Be useful, be invisible. Lucas was seated in the living room when she first saw him. He looked distant, not broken exactly, but withdrawn, as if the world had grown too loud and he had stepped away from it. Dark glasses hid his eyes. His posture was composed but guarded, like someone bracing for disappointment. Anna smiled anyway. "Good morning," she said softly, not because she was told to, but because it felt wrong not to. No one had introduced her yet. No formal explanation. She simply approached and placed a glass of water on the table within his reach. "My name is Anna," she continued.
"I'll be helping around here." Lucas turned his head slightly in her direction. He didn't respond right away. Most people filled silence with discomfort. Anna didn't. She waited. Something about that, about her patience, her lack of expectation, caught Lucas off guard. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, measured. "Thank you." It was a small exchange, ordinary, and yet it felt different from everything else that had happened in the house lately. As the day passed, Anna moved quietly through the rooms, learning the rhythms of the place. She didn't hover, she didn't pity. She asked simple questions when needed and listened carefully to the answers. When Lucas struggled to reach for something, she didn't rush to take over. She adjusted the space so he could do it himself. Lucas noticed. He noticed the way she spoke to him, not around him, the way she explained what she was doing without exaggeration, the way she didn't lower her voice as if he were fragile. In the afternoon, a small girl appeared at the doorway, clutching a stuffed animal, eyes wide with curiosity. "I'm sorry," Anna said quickly, crouching beside her. "She couldn't stay with my neighbor today." Lucas stiffened slightly. Children weren't part of the plan. But as the girl smiled shyly and waved, something unfamiliar stirred in him. Anna's expression softened completely, a warmth she hadn't shown anyone else in the house. For the first time in weeks, Lucas felt the subtle shift of something unguarded entering his carefully controlled world. And he realized, without quite understanding why, that Anna wasn't pretending. Anna's routine settled into the house without announcement. She arrived early, left quietly, and never drew attention to herself unless necessary. Lucas watched her movements with the same care he used to analyze contracts and negotiations. Patterns mattered. Intentions revealed themselves in repetition. Every morning, she spoke to him before anyone else did.
Not with questions, not with instructions, just a simple greeting, as if acknowledging his presence mattered. She explained what she was doing as she moved through the room, opening the curtains halfway, placing objects within reach, adjusting chairs so paths were clear. She never assumed helplessness. She never overcorrected. Lucas noticed how rare that was. When others entered, Anna faded into the background. She listened more than she spoke. But when she thought no one important was watching, she changed. Her shoulders relaxed, her voice softened, especially when her daughter was nearby. The child, small, observant, sat quietly at the table, drawing with crayons Anna carried in her back. When the girl laughed, Anna laughed too, unguarded and real. When the girl grew tired, Anna brushed hair from her face with practiced tenderness. Lucas watched it all, not out of curiosity, out of recognition. One afternoon, Anna apologized for leaving early. "I have another shift," she explained.
Embarrassed. "It's temporary." Lucas nodded, pretending not to hear the exhaustion beneath her words. Later, alone, he replayed the day in his mind. How she had refused an offered ride to avoid being a burden. How she had fixed a loose button on his jacket without asking. How she had thanked him for something he hadn't even done. Gratitude, he realized, had become foreign in his world. That evening, voices rose again down the hallway. His fiancée's impatience, his partner's reassurance.
Words like final signatures and timing slipped through the walls. Lucas didn't turn his head. His focus stayed on a single image, the way Anna had knelt beside her daughter, whispering encouragement as the child struggled to tie her shoe. No audience, no reward, just care. For the first time since the accident, Lucas felt the uncomfortable pressure of comparison, not between people, but between intentions. Between those who circled him for what he represented and someone who treated him as if he were simply there. He adjusted his glasses slightly, hiding the sharpness in his gaze. This was dangerous territory, because lies were easy to control, but sincerity had a way of slipping past defenses, settling where strategy had no reach. And Lucas wasn't sure how long he could continue pretending not to see the difference. The shift was subtle at first, almost respectful. Documents began appearing on Lucas's desk more frequently. They were always explained patiently, summarized slowly, as if clarity were being offered rather than control being taken. His partner's tone was calm, reassuring, his fiancée's presence constant, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder whenever signatures were mentioned. "Just routine," she would say. "Nothing urgent." Lucas signed nothing. He listened. Late afternoons became crowded with quiet activity. Doors closed more often. Phone calls ended abruptly when he entered a room. Once, he heard his partner lower his voice and say, "He doesn't need to know that part." Lucas stopped in the hallway, his footsteps deliberately uneven. Need to know had apparently expired. Anna sensed the tension without understanding its source. She became more careful, more attentive. She checked on Lucas more often, asked gentle questions she never pressed him to answer. When conversations grew sharp nearby, she instinctively positioned herself between him and the noise. He noticed that too. One evening, as rain tapped against the windows, Anna stayed later than usual. Her daughter sat on the floor beside Lucas's chair, lining up small toy animals in careful rows. Anna apologized again for the intrusion. "She likes order," Anna explained with a small smile. "It makes things feel safer." Lucas felt the weight of that sentence linger. Later, when Anna stepped away to answer a call, Lucas heard his fiancée speaking from the study. Her voice carried frustration now, no longer fully disguised. "We can't keep pretending," she said. "The board wants reassurance." His partner replied, firm and decisive. "Then we give it to them. Once the transfer is complete, there's no going back." Anna returned before Lucas could hear more. Her eyes flicked toward the study, unease flashing briefly across her face before she masked it. That night, alone in his room, Lucas removed his glasses and stared at the ceiling. The pieces were falling into place faster than he expected. The betrayal wasn't impulsive. It was methodical, calculated. They weren't waiting for him to fail. They were ensuring he couldn't stop them. And yet, alongside the cold clarity of strategy, something else complicated his resolve. Anna's presence had changed the house, not loudly, not deliberately, but steadily. She had introduced warmth into a place that had grown sterile with ambition, and with that warmth came risk.
Because the closer she stood to him, the closer she stood to the truth. Lucas replaced his glasses and exhaled slowly. The game was reaching its critical stage. Soon he would have to choose between gathering one last piece of evidence or protecting the one person who had never asked him for anything at all. Lucas began to dread the moments when Anna was close. Not because of discomfort, but because of the growing impossibility of pretending nothing had changed. She spoke to him the same way she always had, with quiet respect and unforced kindness. Yet now there were pauses between words. Moments where her eyes lingered a second too long before she looked away. Small hesitations that revealed more than she intended. Lucas felt them all, and each one made the lie heavier. He found himself listening for her footsteps, aware of the rhythm of her day. When she laughed in the kitchen with her daughter, something loosened inside him. When she looked tired,
Guilt followed close behind. He was letting her believe he was someone he wasn't.
a man without power, without clarity, without choice. One afternoon, Anna sat beside him longer than usual, folding laundry in silence. The house was calm. The tension had retreated, temporarily. She spoke without looking at him. "You don't have to answer this," she said carefully, "but does it ever feel worse when people treat you like you're not really there?" Lucas's chest tightened. "Yes," he replied after a pause. "It does." Anna nodded, as if that was all she needed to hear. She didn't push. She never did. That night, Lucas lay awake, replaying the conversation. He could have told her everything. One sentence would have shattered the illusion, but it would have shattered something else too, the sincerity that existed only because she believed the version of him she saw. Anna, meanwhile, fought a quieter battle. She knew she was crossing a line. She felt it every time she adjusted his coat.
Every time she defended him when others spoke over him, she told herself it was gratitude, respect, nothing more. But when she imagined leaving the house for good, the thought settled heavy in her chest. She had fallen for a man she believed was unreachable, and Lucas had fallen for a woman he was deceiving. Two truths growing in opposite directions, bound to collide. Down the hallway, voices rose again. Plans accelerated. Deadlines moved closer. The pressure mounted. Lucas sat alone, glasses in place, listening to the house breathe around him. He had always believed control was the most valuable asset a person could possess. But now, faced with something uncontrollable, he realized the truth. The greatest risk wasn't losing his empire. It was losing Anna before she ever knew who he truly was. The morning began like any other, too quiet, too controlled. Lucas sensed it immediately, the tension beneath the routine, the way voices were careful instead of calm. His fiancée hovered more than usual, offering help he hadn't asked for. His partner arrived early, briefcase in hand, confidence sharpened into urgency. Something was coming. Anna arrived late, breathless, apologizing softly. Her daughter clung to her leg, eyes heavy with sleep. Lucas noticed the tremor in Anna's hands as she set her bag down. "I might need to leave early today," she said, not meeting his gaze. "There's something I have to take care of." Before Lucas could respond, his partner entered the room, smiling too broadly. "Perfect timing," he said. "We were just about to finalize a few things." Folders appeared on the table, thick, deliberate. Lucas leaned forward slightly, his expression unreadable. He listened as explanations unfolded, ownership transfers, emergency authorizations, temporary measures that sounded permanent. His name appeared everywhere, spoken as if it no longer belonged to him. Anna stood frozen at the edge of the room. She recognized the tone now.
The one people used when decisions had already been made. Her daughter, sensing the shift, wandered closer to Lucas, tugging gently at his sleeve. "Why is everyone mad?" she asked in a small voice. The room stilled. Lucas felt his pulse spike. His fiancée's face tightened. His partner glanced toward the child, irritation flashing briefly before being masked. Anna rushed forward. "I'm sorry, she shouldn't." "It's fine," Lucas said calmly. He reached out, steady, placing his hand over the child. The simple gesture broke something open. Anna looked at him then, not as someone fragile, but as someone present, strong. The moment fractured the carefully built performance. His partner cleared his throat. "We should continue." But the spell was broken. Anna's eyes moved from the documents to Lucas, then back again. She didn't understand the details, but she understood the imbalance, the pressure, the way Lucas was being cornered. "I don't think this is right," she said quietly.
Silence fell, thick, dangerous. His fiancée turned sharply. "This doesn't concern you." Anna straightened. "He concerns me." Lucas felt the weight of the moment crash inward. The line had been crossed. By defending him, Anna had stepped into the game, unknowingly placing herself in the path of everything Lucas had been trying to control. That evening, Anna packed her things in silence. She avoided Lucas's gaze, fear and regret warring in her expression. He wanted to stop her, to explain, to end it all. But footsteps echoed in the hallway, voices resumed, plans moved forward. Lucas watched as Anna walked away, her daughter's hand in hers. And for the first time since the deception began, he wasn't sure if patience was still his greatest weapon or his greatest mistake. The room was full when Lucas finally stood. Board members lined the long table. Lawyers sat with files neatly arranged. His fiancée occupied a seat near the head, composed, confident. His partner paced slightly.
Energized by momentum, everything had been prepared to look final, inevitable. Lucas adjusted his glasses. "Before we proceed," he said calmly, "there's something I'd like to clarify." A few exchanged glances followed. His fiancée smiled politely, indulgently. "Lucas," she said, "we've discussed this. It's just a formality." "Yes," he replied, "it is." He reached into his jacket and placed a small device on the table. A single tap. The room filled with sound. Voices. Their voices. Private conversations. Strategic discussions. Numbers. Deadlines. Laughter. Plans spoken as if Lucas were already erased. Each recording played clearly, uninterrupted, filling the space they had assumed was safe. Color drained from faces. Lucas removed his glasses. For the first time they saw his eyes, focused, sharp, entirely present. "I never lost my sight," he said. "I chose silence." He moved slowly, deliberately, every step reclaiming ground. Documents appeared next. Copies, timestamps, authorizations rerouted, accounts protected. Safeguards quietly activated weeks earlier. Every move they had made, he had anticipated. His partner stammered, searching for words that no longer existed. His fiancée rose abruptly, composure cracking. "You can't do this," she said. Lucas met her gaze. "I already did." Security entered the room at his signal. The board members leaned back, absorbing the reversal. Power shifted, not loudly, but absolutely. One by one, consequences settled. His partner was escorted out. His fiancée remained standing alone, exposed by her own certainty. Lucas didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. When the room finally cleared, silence replaced ambition. Only then did Lucas feel the true weight of the moment. Not victory, but finality. The game was over. And yet the thought that pressed hardest against his chest wasn't satisfaction. It was Anna. He had won everything he had set out to protect. But in doing so,
He had risked losing the only thing he hadn't planned for. Lucas picked up his glasses, holding them for a moment before setting them aside. There was one truth still unrevealed, and one person who deserved it most. Anna didn't expect to see him again. She was finishing her shift at the small clinic where she had taken temporary work when Lucas appeared at the doorway. No glasses, no hesitation, just him, standing there, unmistakably present. For a moment she didn't move. Neither did he. "I owe you the truth," Lucas said quietly. They sat across from each other in a near-empty room. Anna listened as he spoke, not defensively, not strategically, but honestly. He told her about the accident that wasn't what it seemed, about the lie he chose to live inside, about the betrayal, about the fear of revealing himself too soon, and the greater fear of losing her. When he finished, silence settled between them. Anna's hands trembled slightly.
"So every moment, every conversation." "I saw you," Lucas said. "All of you, when no one else did." Tears welled in her eyes, not from anger, but from the weight of realization. She had loved a man she believed was unreachable, and he had loved her while hiding behind a version of himself that didn't exist. "I didn't need you to be powerful," she said softly. "I just needed you to be real." Lucas nodded. "So did I." Outside, Anna's daughter waited, drawing on the pavement with chalk. When she looked up and saw Lucas, she smiled without hesitation. Something in Lucas's chest finally loosened. Time didn't rush after that. It unfolded. Lucas rebuilt what had been damaged, not just his company, but himself. He stepped away from control where it no longer served him. Anna returned, not as someone who helped quietly from the shadows, but as someone seen, respected, chosen. There was no grand declaration, no spectacle. Just a life reshaped by truth. One evening,
As they sat together, watching the sun disappear beyond the horizon, Anna rested her head against his shoulder. Lucas didn't reach for his glasses. He didn't need them anymore, because some things were never about seeing clearly. They were about finally allowing yourself to be seen.